In the living room, she found the Martin D28 guitar that Paul had used to compose. Yesterday, decades ago, still resting on its stand, Martha rubbed her body against the instrument, marking it with her scent, as if to say, "I'm taking care of this for you." In the conservatory, she discovered an old record player with a vinyl still on the turntable. Ram, the 1971 album. Martha by accident touched the tone arm, and the equipment came to life. Paul's voice, young and vibrant, filled the environment. She froze, ears attentive, heart racing. It was him. Not physically, but it was him. The voice, the music, the essence. For 3 hours, Martha remained seated there, listening to the album play on loop, rediscovering Paul through his art. The following days brought visitors. First came James, one of Paul's sons, with red eyes and an expression of deep sadness. He entered the house with reverence, as if stepping on sacred ground. Martha watched him from a distance initially, but when James sat at the piano and began to play Here, There and Everywhere with fingers trembling with emotion, she approached and jumped into his lap. James hugged the cat tightly, and both cried together, human and animal united in the same loss. "You were so important to him," James whispered, stroking Martha's soft fur. "He always said you understood him better than anyone, that you listened to his songs before anyone else." Fans came too, hundreds of them leaving flowers, letters, drawings, and candles outside the property gates. Martha watched from the window, intrigued by that collective demonstration of love for her owner. Paul belonged not only to her, but to the entire world. One afternoon, Ringo Starr appeared, the last living Beatle besides Paul, now the only surviving member of the band. He entered the house, accompanied by James, and went straight to the studio. Martha followed him. Ringo sat behind a drum kit that Paul kept there and, with tears streaming down his wrinkled face, played the introduction to A Day in the Life. The sound reverberated through the walls, and Martha felt something she hadn't experienced since Paul's departure, a connection with music, with life, with the continuity of things. "He loved you, you know," Ringo said, noticing Martha sitting in the studio doorway. "He always sent photos of you in our message groups. He said you were his silent muse." Martha approached and rubbed her head against Ringo's leg, purring for the first time in days. The weeks turned into months. Martha learned to live with Paul's physical absence, but she also discovered that he had never really gone. Every morning, she woke up and made her rounds through the house, no longer searching, but watching, protecting. The studio became her command post. There, surrounded by instruments and the persistent smell of creativity that seemed impregnated in the walls, Martha found her purpose. In December, an important decision was made by the McCartney family. The house would be partially converted into a private memorial, not open to the public, but preserved exactly as Paul had left it. A place where the family could come, where musicians Paul had mentored could be inspired, where his essence would be kept alive, and Martha would be the resident guardian. Stella McCartney, Paul's daughter and renowned fashion designer, took on the responsibility of caring for Martha. She visited the house 3 times a week, always bringing fresh salmon and spending hours with the cat, telling stories about her father. "You know," Stella said one afternoon, sitting on the studio floor with Martha in her lap, "Dad used to say that animals understand music in a purer way than we humans do, that you hear not just the notes, but the emotion behind them. I think that's why he connected so deeply with you." Martha purred, her way of agreeing. The true moment of transformation came on a February night. 7 months after Paul's departure, Martha was lying on the piano, as she did every night, when she heard a familiar sound, music. Someone was playing guitar in the living room. She quickly descended the stairs and found an unexpected scene. 3 young musicians, protégés of Paul whom he had mentored, were in the room with instruments, surrounded by members of the McCartney family. "We thought about making this a monthly tradition," James explained to those present. "Dad always wanted this house to be a living place where music never stopped. So we're going to bring musicians here. We're going to play his songs. We're going to create new music." That's what he would have wanted. They began to play Blackbird, and Martha approached, sitting right in the center of the circle formed by the musicians. She closed her eyes and for the first time since October felt complete again. Paul wasn't there in body, but he was in every chord, in every note, in every heartbeat of those people who loved him. Music was his immortality. In the following months, the house gained new life. Musicians visited regularly, always greeted by Martha, who had become a kind of mascot and muse of the project. She watched them rehearse, compose, play. Sometimes, the musicians swear that when they were about to give up on a difficult melody, Martha would meow or do something that inspired them to continue. "It's like she carries a piece of Paul's spirit," commented a young singer after a particularly productive session. "When she's in the studio with us, ideas flow more easily." Martha also developed a new habit. Every night before sleeping, she went to the office, jumped onto the desk, and lay on the brown leather notebook. The one with Martha's song unfinished was her way of saying, "I'm still here, I'm still listening." The song continues. 1 year after Paul's departure, in October 2025, the family organized a small private ceremony in the house garden. They planted a cherry tree, Paul's favorite, and installed a discreet plaque that read, "Music never dies. It just changes form." Martha watched the ceremony from her favorite window, and at that moment, for the first time, she felt something she hadn't experienced since the last goodbye: peace. Paul McCartney was gone, but hadn't disappeared. He lived in the music that continued to be played, in shared memories, in smiles through tears, in melodies that would still make future generations sing along. And he lived in Martha, the silent guardian of his legacy, the faithful witness to his humanity, the last companion of his final days. At night, when the house finally quieted and visitors left, Martha made her final rounds. She passed through the studio, checking that all instruments were in order. She visited the office, lying briefly on the sacred notebook. She went down to the living room, where portraits of Paul at different stages of life seemed to smile at her in the shadows. And then, finally, she climbed the stairs toward the master bedroom. There, she jumped on the king-size bed and curled up on the pillow on the left side. Paul's side. The scent had long since disappeared, but Martha no longer needed it. She carried Paul in other ways now, in the memory of his caresses, in the echo of his songs, in the continuity of the love he had cultivated. Before sleeping, Martha purred softly, her own melody, her lullaby. And if you listened carefully, you could swear that somewhere between those feline vibrations, there was a bit of "Hey Jude," a fragment of "Let It Be," a hint of all the songs Paul McCartney had ever composed. Because true love doesn't end with the last goodbye. It transforms, adapts, finds new ways to exist.